I'm guilty of being a dwarf.
That's the line everyone remembers. Most people heard rage. Most people heard a man finally telling a kingdom what he thinks of them. I want you to hear something else. That sentence didn't begin in this courtroom. It didn't begin in this season. It didn't even begin in this man. By the time Tyrion Lannister says those 8 words out loud, he's been saying them in his own head every day for 40 years.
What you see is a dwarf.
Go to the 2nd episode of the show. Tyrion has just traveled north. He's standing beside the world's largest piece of ice, having a perfectly ordinary conversation with a teenage stranger. Jon asks him a simple question.
Why'd you read so much?
What Tyrion says in response sounds like a philosophy. Look at me and tell me what you see. It plays like a wise man teaching a young one a lesson. Most people remember it that way. It isn't a lesson, it's a self-diagnosis. Out loud, to a teenager he just met on the first night he's known him. In the middle of the most ordinary chat 2 travelers could have. And then he says the thing in the clip. Not they see a dwarf. Not the world sees a dwarf. You, as in everyone, as in including the one looking out of his eyes. He keeps going.
If I had been born a peasant, they might have left me out in the woods to die.
He's not bitter when he says it. He's not even sad, he's casual. Because by season 1, episode 2, before any of the plot has happened, before any of the loss, before any of the betrayals, this man has already finished the argument about his own worth. He's already lost. You fell in love with a witty, charming character. You missed what he was telling you in the first hour. The trial was already running. You just couldn't hear it yet.
You who killed your mother to come into the world?
A father is speaking to a son. The son is asking for what's owed to him by law. The father is refusing in a particular way, not with logic, not with policy, but with this. That line you just heard is 40 years old by the time Tywin says it. He's said versions of it to Tyrion since the boy was a child. You killed your mother to come into the world. Every time he looks at his son, he sees a death. Every time he speaks to him, he speaks like a man addressing a small, persistent insult. Now listen to what comes 30 seconds later.
You are an ill-made, spiteful little creature. I cannot prove that you are not mine.
This is not a man losing his temper. This is a man prosecuting. He's been building a case against his own child since the child was born. He has the indictment memorized, and the son sitting across from him has memorized it too. Watch Tyrion's face during this. He doesn't argue. He doesn't push back. He absorbs. Because there's nothing his father can say in this room that the boy hasn't already said to himself 1,000 times. His father isn't telling him news. That's the trap. Once a child stops being able to tell the difference between his parent's verdict and his own thought, the parent doesn't need to be in the room anymore. The verdict travels.
He brought me into the barracks and made me watch.
He was 16. A girl had crossed his path on a country road. He gave her food. She gave him a kiss. He gave her a marriage. They had 2 weeks. Her name has only been spoken once in this whole show.
Her name was Tysha.
His father heard about the wedding. His father didn't yell. His father didn't lecture. His father did this.
My father brought in my wife and gave her to his guards.
A boy who has just learned what it feels like to be loved is standing in a barracks, watching the love being unmade in front of him. The boy now has 2 questions to answer. Was I wrong about her, or was I wrong about me? Listen to how he tells the story years later.
I was 16, drunk and in love.
He says it like an apology. He says it like a man who was supposed to know better. He's not angry at the father. He's not angry at the brother who arranged it. He's a little embarrassed at the boy who believed her. Notice what he just did. He took an act of cruelty done to him, and he turned it into evidence against himself. The boy concluded he was a fool, and the man never reversed the verdict. Every woman who walks into Tyrion's life after that barracks loses to a sentence he handed down in his own head at 16 years old.
There's a brave men knocking at our door!
This is the moment that should have ended the trial. The city is about to fall. The king has fled. The hand is bedridden. The fleet is on fire. And the only person standing between the capital and Stannis Baratheon's army is the man his father called spiteful, ill-made, low cunning. He gives the speech. he leads the men. Half his face is cut open. The city survives because Tyrion saved it. This is evidence, in the legal sense. The prosecution has been arguing for 40 years that this man is worthless. And the man has just won a battle no one else could win. Now watch where he takes that evidence. The next morning he's wounded, exhausted, alone, and he goes to the one person in the world whose verdict matters to him. Listen to what he says.
I bled in the mud for our family.
That's not bragging. Listen for what's underneath the words. Take it back. Tell me you were wrong about me. He's not asking for a reward. He's asking the prosecution to drop the case.
Jugglers and singers require applause.
Case is not dropped. The case continues. And Tyrion tries one more time, quietly, almost shyly, like a child afraid to be heard wanting something.
I am your son and lawful heir.
That's not a political claim. That's a boy asking his father to call him his son. And the father refuses, cleanly, coldly, as if it had never been a question. And here's what nobody points out. Tyrion stops fighting. He doesn't yell. He doesn't slam his fist on the desk. He doesn't say, "I just saved your bloody empire." He goes quiet and leaves the room. Why? Because the prosecutor inside him agreed with his father before his father opened his mouth. The verdict was reaffirmed. The evidence was dismissed. And Tyrion walked out of that room more convinced of his own unworthiness than when he walked in, with a sword wound that proved the opposite.
One word, and I hit you again.
Pay attention to a strange detail. This is the second episode of the show. Tyrion barely knows the Starks. Bran is the son of a man he just met. And here he is, slapping the future king of the Seven Kingdoms. A boy who could have him executed for failing to perform grief at a stranger's bedside. He has plenty of courage. He keeps showing it for the next 7 seasons. He'll defend Sansa. He'll defend a wildling girl in a council meeting. He'll stand against his sister in front of an entire court. Years from now, he'll lose his hand for telling a mad queen the truth she doesn't want to hear. He can punch up. He can punch sideways. He can punch a king. Watch who he can never punch. In every scene where Tyrion is the lawyer for someone weaker than himself, he's brilliant, sharp, fearless, fast. In every scene where Tyrion is the lawyer for Tyrion, he goes quiet, he apologizes, he concedes. He pours another drink. He is the best defense attorney in Westeros. He just refuses to take his own case. Why? Because the prosecutor inside him isn't running the kingdom's case. The prosecutor is only running one case, and against everyone else. Tyrion's a brilliant lawyer. Against himself, he's already pled guilty. Every brave thing you ever saw him do for someone else is also a confession of the one thing he can never do for himself.
You're a whore!
This is the cruelest scene Tyrion ever plays, and it's the most important one for understanding him. There's a ship in the harbor, Pentos, a house across the sea, servants. He's saving her life. His father has promised to hang the next woman he finds in Tyrion's bed, and the man has never made an idle threat. He's protecting her. The script tells you he's protecting her. Tyrion tells himself he's protecting her. Watch his face. That's not a man saving a woman. That's a man enforcing something. He's saying these words.
Sansa is fit to bear my children, and you are not. I can't be in love with a whore.
He's lying about all of it. He loves her. He's not married to Sansa in any real sense. He doesn't believe what he's saying. He's a man forcing sentences through his own throat that he doesn't mean. So why is he saying them? Because Shae loved him back. She kept proving the verdict wrong. For 2 years, every night, every kiss. Every time she came back when she had no reason to, she was disproving the prosecutor's case. I am not lovable was the verdict. Shae was the contradicting evidence. The voice inside Tyrion couldn't survive that for much longer. So the voice did this. It wore Tyrion's mouth and broke the woman he loved on purpose. She names it before she leaves. She tells him he's afraid. He says he isn't. And then she says this.
You're going to run from them all your life?
Saw the prosecutor from the outside. A woman with no education in any of this looked at him and saw the man inside the man. And he couldn't let her be right. Because if she was right, the verdict was wrong. And if the verdict was wrong, he didn't know who he was. So he chose the verdict over her. He kept the prosecutor and lost the woman, and by the end of the scene, watch him sit in that empty bedroom. That's a man who just won the argument he's been losing all his life. The voice got what it wanted. He's alone again. The case is intact.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
Go back to the courtroom. The case against him is for poisoning a king. His sister has bought half the witnesses. The other half are telling the truth in the ugliest possible way. Everyone in the room has already decided, and his own father is the judge. He stood up to argue his innocence. Listen to the first words out of his mouth.
Yes, Father, I'm guilty.
He's not. He didn't poison Joffrey. He says so in the next breath. But notice what comes out before the denial. Yes, Father, I'm guilty. As if those two sentences were waiting at the front of his throat his entire life. Waiting for any open courtroom that would have them. The trial about the king is the wrong trial. He's about to give his closing argument in a trial nobody but him has been attending for 40 years. Then he says the thing the audience misremembers.
I've been on trial for that my entire life.
Stop. Read that line again in your head. I've been on trial for that my entire life. He just told a courtroom of strangers what he's never told a friend, a lover, a brother. There is a trial. It has been running. It is the most important fact about him, and nobody in the room registers it. They think it's rhetoric. They think it's defiance. They think they're watching a man rage against the establishment. He's not raging against the establishment. He's raging against the prosecutor in his own head. And the prosecutor is winning so completely that he can't even tell where the prosecutor stops and Tyrion begins anymore. Then he says the line in the clip, the one most people quote. The one fans hold up as iconic.
I wish I was the monster you think I am.
Hear that the way it's actually meant. That's not pride, that's grief. I wish your verdict were right. Because if he were the monster, the trial would be over. The prosecution would have its proof. The defendant could stop fighting. He could rest. But he isn't the monster. He's just a man who has lost a 40-year argument with himself. And the longer he loses it, the more he wishes he were guilty of something big enough to deserve the verdict. This is the only scene in the show where the voice inside Tyrion gets to speak in the open. The next scene, he'll be back to drinking. The scene after that, he'll be back to quipping. But for these 2 minutes, the prosecutor stood up in a public room and delivered the closing argument it had been writing since the day a boy was made to watch a girl be. Unmade in a barracks, he demands trial by combat at the end. He doesn't trust the court's verdict. He trusts his own. And his own has already convicted him.
I'm sorry.
He didn't escape his cell to find his father. He went to find Shay. He goes to his father's chambers because that's where the woman he loved is. Sleeping in his father's bed, he climbs onto her. She reaches for the knife at her hip. He doesn't run. He doesn't talk her down. He doesn't try to understand. He gets the chain around her throat and finishes it. He whispers 2 words after.
I'm sorry.
Now, listen to what he says to his father after murdering Shay.
Put down that crossbow.
Murdered her.
He doesn't say she attacked me. He doesn't say I had no choice. He doesn't even say I lost control. He uses the cleanest, most prosecutorial word in the English language. Murdered. Why? Because Shay was the last living piece of evidence that the verdict was wrong. She was the case he'd been trying not to win for 2 years. The prosecutor inside him couldn't lose to her again. So the prosecutor wore Tyrion's hands and ended the argument by ending her. Watch him after she's still. There's no horror in his face. There's almost relief. The kind of stillness a man feels when a question he's been carrying for too long finally gets an answer, even a terrible one. She's gone. The verdict is back in possession of the field. The case is intact. He's safe to be hated again.
You're my son.
I am your son.
Now he goes looking for the man whose voice has been running him. He doesn't ambush him. He doesn't poison him in his sleep. He confronts him in the most undignified room in the castle and gives him a long, slow chance to say one thing. Just one. His father has had 40 years to take it back. And as he sits on a privy with a crossbow bolt in his gut, watch what Tyrion is still trying to do. Listen carefully. This isn't an argument about politics. It isn't even about Shay anymore.
I am your son, and you sentenced me to die. All my life, you've wanted me dead.
He's not killing his father for revenge. He's not killing him for Shay. He's killing him in the middle of an argument about whether he was ever loved. He pulls the trigger because he can't get the answer he needs. And then he keeps pulling the trigger because his father, in his last breath, gives him the wrong answer one more time. But here's the part that should haunt you. Tyrion thinks he just killed the prosecutor. He didn't. The prosecutor moved out of his father years ago. The prosecutor lives in Tyrion's own head now. The man on the privy was a host, the voice had already left. Killing him was symbolic at best. And Tyrion is about to spend 4 seasons learning what that means. You can't shoot a voice that already has your address.
Can I drink myself to death on the road to Marine?
He's in Essos. He's safe. His sister can't reach him. His father is dead. He's the freest he has ever been. This is what he does with it. Watch him in this clip. That's not a man on holiday. He's not relaxing. He's not regrouping. He's doing the thing he's been doing for 20 years, drinking, but with one detail changed. There's no audience. There's no court to charm. There's no enemy to outwit. The wine isn't a performance anymore. It's the bare wire. For the entire show up to this point, you have been watching a man drink in public. You thought it was character. You thought it was charm. You thought it was a vice he had a healthy, ironic relationship with. Watch him now, alone with a man he trusts, the same wine, same hand. No jokes left.
Drunken dwarf will never be the savior of the Seven Kingdoms. Done with Westeros, and Westeros is done with me.
That's a man who has given up. Not given up on a war. Given up on himself. Given up on the case the lawyer in him spent 40 years trying not to win. And then, asked to give a reason. Asked to defend himself just one more time, he says this.
I killed my lover with my bare hands.
Notice he doesn't justify it. He doesn't explain. He just hands the prosecutor the exhibit. Here, this is who I am. I told you all my life. He's not arguing anymore. He's stipulating. And the wine in his hand makes more sense now than it ever has. He's not a drunk who jokes. He's a man who has to drink to keep the prosecutor below speaking volume. Every clever line you ever heard was delivered in the silence between 2 sips. Every drink was a vote to keep the voice down for 1 more hour. The father is dead. The voice survived. And there is only one substance in the world that quiets it.
Oblivion is the best I could hope for.
This is where you were always going to find him. A cell. No wit, no drink, no father, no woman, no king to charm, and no court to fight. Just a man, sitting on a stone bench, finally saying the verdict in his own voice. No crossbow in his hands, no crown to give away, no wife to break. He hasn't slipped. He hasn't broken. He has just stopped pretending. Listen to what he says about himself in the next breath.
I strangled my lover. I chose my fate.
This is the prosecutor with no defendant left. Tyrion has stopped objecting. He stops drinking. He stops joking. He sits in a cell and he agrees, out loud with everything the voice has ever said. He survives the day. He even gets a crown of his own, Hand of the King. Watch him in the last scene of the show.
That will improve.
Quiet, tired, no wit, the drink barely there. He won the throne. He outlasted every enemy who ever stood against him. He never outlasted the one inside him.